All right, team. So we are back with the Chasing Better podcast with myself, Dylan, and the incredible Andrew Knox, looking flash today, brother.
Yeah, I thought I'd try these sunglasses on for a difference. YouTube's going to be looking good through this these ones. Yeah.
Yeah, you pulled out all the stops today, man. Where'd you pick those little ones up from?
Well, these are definitely a Bali special. You can tell from the glare that they've got on the front there. So they're $1.95.
Yeah, for sure. Man, another awesome weekend down at TBC plus your online crew, getting some big wins there, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's always an exciting time having both new people and guys that I've trained for 2-3 years come in and notice little changes, big changes, wins, losses, all that sort of stuff, and just have a bit of reflection at the end of the week. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, awesome, man. And like today's podcast, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Is the difference between big and little goals, and why did you come off that, man? Why do you want to talk about big versus little goals?
Well, I figured in the spirit of starting journeys, finding out what your first 100 meters looks like, all that sort of stuff, you can't really go anywhere if you don't have some form of destination in mind. Now, that being said, that generally becomes big goal, right? So it's like, I've got this big dream, this big target, I've got to drop 50 kilos for a wedding or whatever. The problem that generally comes as hand in hand with that, so to speak, is there's no little goals along the way or steps or methods or anything like that to actually show what it's like to get to that big goal. And I think that's why I wanted to put the importance on big and small goals, why we need both, because you can't really get to the big goals if you're not ticking off little goals along the way.
Yeah, man. And like with all your clients and that, you've probably seen this go wrong along the way. In regards to just focusing on that big goal, that big outcome, the Everest, if we like. What sort of problems can we run into with that, man? Or
I think probably the first problem is you don't actually know what it's going to feel like to hit that goal, right? Like for me, for example, dropping 90 kilos, like I mentioned the other week, I had no idea I was actually going to end up losing 90 kilos, right? I was going to be happy if I dropped 10, maybe 5, all that sort of stuff. But to then see a shift of 90, like I still didn't know what that actually meant or felt like or how it was going to change me. Like I hadn't reached out to anyone that had lost weight previously to go, what's it like to actually live lighter? You know what I mean? And I think that's something that can kind of make people get a bit lost, is because they've set such a huge target. Now, again, it's always great to dream big and all that sort of stuff. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Again, there's never a right or wrong answer. But the problem is if that dream is massive, it can also lead to overwhelm. So all of a sudden you start to get anxious. You're like, oh, am I doing enough each week? And then you start beating up on yourself. And then all of a sudden you're back to square one because you've stopped because you've had a bit of a freak out.
Yeah. And man, I know we've been through that ourselves many a times.
Of course.
It's probably we're having a good chat a few weeks ago, man, and you ran into a few of your own little road bumps along the way. Obviously when you're chasing those big goals, man, and it was a time where you were bloody freaking out. But you did the right thing, man, in terms of reaching out. And I guess when we are going through these journeys and that, it is bloody scary. And it's often that mountain just looks so far away, doesn't it? So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it's great to have an Everest, but as we know, you've got Mount Kosciuszko, you've got all these other Kilimanjaro, you've got all these different mountains around the planet that are nowhere near as big as Everest, but they're still achievable, right? Like there's still peaks that people climb all the time. There's still peaks that people go, hey man, like I hit a life goal of climbing Kilimanjaro. Like awesome, okay, sweet. And you can totally liken that to your health and fitness goals, your mental health goals, like your career goals, like all these sorts of things. Like it is relatable to everything, because if your Everest is to become an astronaut, well, cool. There's a lot of little mini mountains you've got to get to the top of first before you hit that astronaut. Like, people don't come out of the womb and they're ready to be an astronaut. Like, that's just not how it works, right?
Do you reckon Elon 40 would?
I reckon there would have been a point where he first had an original thought, and he's like, I wonder what it's like to be up in space. You know, it'd be interesting to know what that kind of looked like. I'd love to spend 5 minutes with him and just be like, when was the first time space became the next big thing for you? You know, like, and it'd be fascinating.
It would be incredible, man. And I guess, man, like, swinging it back around, like, I know you've got a ton of client journeys and that to share. What was one in particular, maybe where the focus was put on purely climbing Everest, and then they had to readjust and shift to those smaller goals?
It's pretty much weekly. Like, this is literally a weekly occurrence, especially with new clients. Now, generally, like I mentioned before, and I bang on about it all the time, people come in, they're like, I need weight loss. It's like, awesome. Weight loss is a goal. Sometimes it's a really broad goal, i.e. I need weight loss. Like, some people don't even know what number of kilos they want to lose, whether it's 500 grams, 50 kilos, whatever. And the first question I generally ask is, it's like, cool, well, like, 5 kilos is great, but what does that first kilo look like? And what do we need to do to make that happen, right? And all of a sudden they start going, and the general response I'll get when I break it down for them like that is, you know, trying to make it approachable and attainable, is generally they'll go, oh, is 5 kilos too much? And I said, no, definitely not too much, not too little. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but you have no idea what it feels like to be 5 kilos lighter potentially right now in this time. What I want to get you used to the fact is, well, in a week or two, we could have you be a kilo lighter, but what are the steps we need to put in place now to start moving towards that? Like, how do we break that down just into small, achievable weekly and daily things? Yeah.
And with a weight loss goal, man, let's say the goal was a 50 kilo weight loss, you know, like those big goals of, like, that takes a lot of work, you know, and it's even for me, like, I got no idea what that would be. I'd be a very, very skinny man. But
you'd lose your booty. I
got no idea. Yeah, I got zero idea what that feels like. And really good way to put that in perspective is, like, for someone who does have a goal, you know, to lose 40, 50, 60 kilos, and as you said, man, live a lighter life. What would the sort of steps and goals look like, man?
Well, I would generally, the first thing I would look at is, okay, what do we need to do is to hit that first kilo. Because once you've lost that first kilo, you then realize, okay, it's possible for me to actually lose weight, right? And then the second thing is, like,
Knoxy.
Hey?
Yeah, just on that, like, losing that first kilo, losing that first kilo, for those out there listening, just a quick thing, like, how can you lose that first kilo?
First kilo can be as simple as changing no daily movement to 10,000 steps a day, right? Like, getting more movement in, like, move your body more. And again, I'm not expecting you to be able to run a marathon day one or to deadlift double body weight day one or anything ridiculous like that. Because again, those are end game goals. What we want to look at is the small things. Cool. How do I find another 2,000 to 3,000 steps in my day so that in a couple of weeks I am hitting 10,000, no worries at all, right? Like, that's a small mini goal that you can just tick off every day. And then we break that down and go, cool. Yeah. And then we break that down and we go, cool. Well, to hit that 2,000, my goal is I need to program in a walk each day, 20 to 30 minutes. Awesome, right? Doesn't matter if you're 200 kilos or 50 kilos or whatever. Everyone can find the time to go, cool, I'm going to plan 20 to 30 minutes to just move every day.
Yeah, and that's such a great little win. And, like, to get that first initial win, that first kilo, gives you that momentum, and then you're sort of onto that step 2. What is your step 2?
Well, step 2 is, once you've found something that works, generally you don't have to change much at all. What you actually need to change, so to speak, is the fact that you are consistent, right? Because in the past, you haven't been consistent generally, right? So what we need to change is, like, cool, well, consistency is do it every day. And again, find that small daily goal that you can just tick off every day. And then all of a sudden your Everest becomes Kilimanjaro because you're slowly starting to get closer and closer to that peak.
Yeah. And like in terms of that, man, like sticking to a goals, and we all know that it is often will fall off the rails, and that, like, what is maybe a couple of tips in terms of sticking to your goals or holding yourself accountable?
Well, yeah, big thing you mentioned then is accountability, right? Something I often set for clients when they are trying to set a goal is having an accountability partner or a running mate, right? Now, again, this is, like I said, doesn't mean they actually have someone that goes running with them necessarily. It's someone that, it could be a family member. It could be someone that they just know at work. They might not even be best mates at work, but just announce it to someone. Hey man, I'm doing this weight loss thing. It's going to be sick, right? Like, I've said a thing that I'm going to walk 20 minutes a day. Like, oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Some people may go, oh, fuck, you're crazy. Cool. Find someone else. They're not the right person. Right. But again, if you can announce it to at least one other person, you've already started to shift your mindset to go, I'm going to do this. Right. Because there's now people that when you touch base with them in 6 months from now or 30 days from now, which is what your initial goal might be, that person's going to go, oh yeah, how are you going with that? And all of a sudden you've got to give an honest answer. And it's like, yeah, I've hit it, or oh, I did 28 out of 30 days or whatever. Right. But you've now got accountability in its most basic form. Yeah.
And that's what I love about your online community, man, is like, you've got this, community of people everywhere. You've got your international client, you've got your interstate clients, but they all sort of support each other and hold each other accountable, which is pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's finding that relatability, because everyone's on a journey, however you want to label it. Right. But like, everyone's in it for their own reason. The fundamentals across the board are generally similar, right? But everyone's in it for whatever their end game is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And what would be your step 3?
So step 3 for me is usually once you've found the simple daily tasks and weekly things that you can just tick off, and you've then announced it to someone. Now, again, I've had some clients that actually just jump straight on Facebook and they're like, I'm going to lose 50 kilos. Watch this space. I'm like, sick. That's awesome. Right. Because now I'm going to comment on this post every 30 days. But it's also the fact that the next thing is making sure you celebrate those wins. Right. I think that's probably the most powerful thing, is that when people start checking off those little daily goals, they have to celebrate it. Now, again, if it's a weight loss goal, of course, you're not going to go and celebrate it with a Mars bar every day, right? But we want to find some form. And the simplest way to reward yourself with a victory, self high five, go and tell someone, go and tell your accountability buddy, hey, man, I hit my second day in a row. Like, awesome, right? Like, again, we're building this framework, and all of a sudden as a client, you start to go, oh, there's a system here that I could do just every day, right? Now, all of a sudden, like I said, Everest starts to get that little bit smaller, because you start getting that little bit closer and a little bit closer to the peak. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's probably, like, just circling back around to that, that peak is so high. And once you can start to realize, like, you take that step 1, you make those little wins, you put it out there to hold yourself accountable. And then every day when you sort of like pat yourself on the back, give yourself that little high five, it just reinforces that, hey, look, I made another step forward. I took another step, and I am slowly climbing up this mountain, which is cool.
Yeah. Damn straight, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I guess just for everyone out there, man, like, in regards to, chopping down their own mountain, their own tree, like, what's probably, I guess, maybe from your own journey, man, like, there's going to be times where they literally are like, bugger a mountain. I've seen enough of that mountain. I don't think I'm ever going to get there. What would be something, I guess, in terms of, some insight from your journey of how to just, get back on and start climbing that mountain? Because people do fall off. What would be something that you'd sort of have some advice there, man?
I think advice for the proverbial fallen off the bandwagon people is go over why you started. Like, go over it again. Like, cool. Like remind yourself of the reasons and the pain points and the if, the buts, the whys, the excuses, the whatever. Like remind yourself of why you want it to be better in the first place. Because again, sometimes we get so caught up in the process. Again, we haven't celebrated a win in a week or two. And all of a sudden, everything feels difficult and hard and I'm not actually moving anywhere. But when you've got a coach or an accountability mate or someone to just touch base and go, man, you're still down 20 kegs. Like, yeah, you're not at 50 yet, but like you've been killing it. Like you are 20 kilos lighter, or you are 4 kilos lighter. You're on your way to being 8 kilos lighter, or whatever the goal may be. Your deadlift has gone up 20 kilos, but you got to remember strength training goals, like they take time as well. Like you can't just train for 6 weeks and then go, cool, well, I've gone from 100 kilos to 200 kilos. Like it just doesn't work that way either. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is like, go back to your starting point and then just refresh that, because a lot of the time that will generally bring your brain back into the current, which is like, well, actually, no, I don't feel shit all the time because I am 20 kilos lighter. I am on my way to 50, but I know that if I'd actually completely fallen off the wagon, yeah, I would be back to square one. I'd be 20 kilos heavier again. I'd feel like crap. Like a lot of the time it's just they've had a bad day. Yeah, really. Like that's generally what it is, right? And they might have had one bad day. They didn't have any wins that day, or so they think, even though they still got up out of bed on time. They still had their morning coffee and felt good at looking at the sunshine, come in the window. They still went to work. They still accomplished stuff, right? They still got a bit of a training session, and it might not have broken any world records. But sometimes people just need to be like, hey, man, let's just stop freaking out for a second. Do you remember day one? Because day one, you were in a world of pain. You were in a world of hurt. You were all over the shop. You're no longer there. So keep going forward.
Yeah, man. I love that. And like, I guess a little bit of my own journey too. Like I remember when I was starting out sort of fitness and, I think it probably took me about 2 or 3 years to get a bit of consistency. I would have been in my late teens. And I remember there was just one day I was so sore because I just flogged myself. And I was like, dude, never have a day one ever again.
Yeah.
It's literally stuck with me for such a long time now where I'm just like, all right, that's it. No more day ones. And, it took me 2 or 3 years to get to that point. But, once I sort of realized that and was able to allow myself just, all right, this is why we're doing it. And just keep getting back on, man. I think that's so powerful. And like, man, I know we always talk about this stuff, and like you're sort of going through your own little journey now at the moment. Like tomorrow, the goal is to win a game of footy.
Yeah, right.
But sort of, I guess, yeah, exactly. Like we all want to win a game of footy, man, or we all want to bring home the grand final. But I guess what is the little things that you're going to put in place so that you can have a successful game tomorrow? And like, let's just sort of, I guess, think of this in regards to, win or lose, what can you do tonight to set yourself up? What can you do in the morning to make sure that you give yourself the best little chance? Sort of following the framework we talked about.
Yeah, so a big thing, our coach, we've got a new Resi's coach this year. He's, coached premiership sides and stuff before. A big thing he's actually made us focus on is not actually mentioning premierships, right? Because he knows that we've got 12 FIFO guys, give or take, that come in and out of the squad every second week, right? So consistency of our playing group can be a little bit all over the shop. And again, that's Resi's football, right? It's not your main league side, all that sort of stuff. But I think the biggest thing he's taught us is, and you hear it all the time in sports, play your role, right? Especially team sports, it's like play your role. And it's like, cool, well, I know I'm a forward, but I know I'm not the full forward or the centre half forward. I'm off on the flank or in the pocket. So my job is to attack out of our forward 50, but then also push back hard to be at the drop of the ball. So like that's pretty much, and then put tackling pressure on, like to hold the ball in our forward 50, because it gives us more, chances of scoring because we've got the ball in our half longer, right? So those are probably my 2 to 3 things that I actually went to the coach because, he's new and all that sort of stuff. And I said, coach, what are like 2 to 3 things that you want me to just nail every weekend? And he's, and I think from a prep side of things, those are the only 3 things that go through my head all today, all tomorrow, and then all throughout the game. If anything slight comes up during the game, yeah, cool. The coach will address that. But generally, those are the three things that are just constantly going through my head. Same as when I'm looking at my prep, right? It's like, cool, well, I know I need sleep, so don't be a dickhead and be up till 2 a.m., right? So, make sure I just get my normal sleep pattern in. Food, I don't go overboard because I know, there have been times where I'm like, well, I'm probably going to burn an extra 1,000 calories tomorrow because I'm in a game situation, but it doesn't mean I can just eat like an asshole the night before either, because it can still make you feel like crap, right? So again, I suppose probably the biggest thing is just have that 2 or 3 things to focus on. Because like anything, yes, same with goals. Like if you have 50 steps to try and follow, it's very hard to stick to that goal.
Absolutely, man. And that's the big thing. And so like for our people out there that, do want to live a lighter life or improve their fitness, deadlift, double body weight or whatever, it's just focus on those 2 to 3 things, isn't it? It's exactly the same. Don't worry about the premiership. Just show up, play your role, and the premiership will come.
Yeah. Damn straight.
Awesome, bro. Cool, man. So yeah, just to sign off, is there anything you'd like to finish off with this week?
No, I think probably just the overall message is like, hopefully people now understand a little bit better, like why, yes, a big goal, definitely important. Like if you haven't got dreams and stuff to chase, well, you're not really going to have much purpose to get out of bed in the morning, right? Like that's like, we need to have those. Doesn't matter if they're career-based or health-based or whatever. I think the second thing is like now people understand that small goals can actually be considered as the steps in the method or the process, which have to be there, right? Like if you're going to make a cake, I love a good analogy. If you're going to make a cake and you only follow 2 recipe instructions, probably going to stuff up the cake. Like it's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, whatever analogy you have to use, make sure you've got that big target, but then you've broken it back, broken it up into smaller targets along the way. And then the final thing is just make sure you celebrate those little wins, right? Like it's something I'm huge on. High fives, whatever you got to do, tell someone that you've achieved something for that day. That doesn't matter if they don't get it at first, but you've at least just expressed a sense of achievement. And I think that's probably the most powerful thing you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And if you're out there listening or on the YouTube, make sure you let us know your little wins, because we love to hear it. Knoxy and myself, we'll be able to comment and reply back, and because that's what it's all about, guys. Is we're all in this to chase better, and we want to hear how you guys are chasing better. So, yeah, drop us a comment or a bit of a message, and we're happy to sort of celebrate those wins with you. And let's go chase better.
Yep.
Cheers, Knoxy, brother.
Awesome, man. Signing out, guys. Come chase better with us, and we'll talk to you again next week.